Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Shmuel, Rav Shmuel, with you, Rashbi here, with this week's 10-minute Torah. Hope you're doing well. Yes, they've extended the mask mandate for another month here in beautiful sunny California. So I guess got to do what we got to do, don't we? So, okay, enough of that. This week's portion, Beshalach. It's also the portion of the Song of the Sea, Shira Hayam. So here we have the Israelites leaving Egypt under the watchful eye, of course, of Moses and Aaron, to the chagrin of Pharaoh. Pharaoh did not want to let them go under any circumstances. It took the 10 plagues, but remember, Moses and Aaron first approached him, and Aaron threw down his staff, turned into a snake. Pharaoh's magicians kind of did the same thing, but it was an illusion because Aaron's snake ate those snakes and became a staff again. So in a way, he kind of had 11 or 12 chances to relent, but he did not. And after the final plague, the killing of the firstborn, and as the Torah says, there wasn't a single household where there wasn't a death. Pharaoh relented. His wise men, his necromancers, his magicians were pleading with him, look, this is a force that we cannot deal with. We can't compete with it. We can't overcome it. These people mean business. Let them go. And Pharaoh, stubborn as he was, feeling like he was a god, held on to the very last. And you would think that was it. We all know the story. Moses and Aaron assembled all the Israelites. There was the Erev Rav. There was some people there that just kind of used the confusion to leave Egypt. They were political prisoners, whatever else. They decided to go with them. And they all left. Now, we talk about there being about 600,000 people. Actually, it was 600,000 men. If you add everybody together, it was about 2.5 million. Some people, some sages say that only about a third or a quarter of the Israelites left. The other Israelites, there were more, were so embedded and ingrained in Egyptian society, they didn't want to leave, so they stayed. And of course, they bear the consequences as well. So now we have the people going, and they leave, and now Pharaoh has a change of heart. He looks around, he says, we've just lost all these slaves. What did I do? This is crazy. Assembled 300 of his top charioteers, and my understanding is that a chariot contained two people, one person to drive, the other one to use the weapons to attack, spears, bows and arrows, whatever that was. Follow them out into the wilderness on the premise that he was going to bring them back. Some people don't learn. The Israelites turned around. They had their backs to the water. Once they turned around, I mean, they had the Sea of Reeds there, and they couldn't get through. And then they turned around and they see, Pharaoh and his charioteers coming to grab them, and they panicked. And what happened? Moses went to God, and God said, just hold out your hand and I'll take care of it. Sea parted, the ground hardened, and the Israelites were able to go through. Now, I think I might have mentioned this before in one of my previous year's discussions, but the sea didn't just separate. Nachshon ben Aminadab, the prince of the tribe of Judah, walked into the Sea of Reeds in an act of faith. Once he got up to his chest in the water, that's when the ground hardened and the water split. Very important that the ground hardened, because you got people walking. We've all been on the beach and we've all seen the bottom of the ocean, of the lake or whatever, and it's mud, right? It's water and dirt, it's mud. So God also hardened it so that people could go through. In the meantime, they put a pillar of fire, just like the movie, in between the Egyptians and the Israelites to prevent the Egyptians from following them close behind. Once the Israelites got to the other side, Pharaoh commanded his people to follow the Israelites and, of course, bring them back. They did that, being good soldiers. And once they were all in there, they drowned. God just closed up the water, softened the ground, and the chariots stuck in the mud. They couldn't get out, and bam, they were dead. They were drowned. Pharaoh was the only one to survive. It is said in the Midrash that Pharaoh stands at the gates of purgatory, and when other tyrants come, he looks at them and says, "Didn't you learn by my example?" But that's not the end of the story, unfortunately. Pharaoh didn't learn his lesson. The Israelites get to the other sea. There was rejoicing, there was celebrating. Miriam, now called a prophetess, Moses' older sister, is now with the timbrels, with these tambourines or these little drum things. With the other woman, they're dancing, they're celebrating, and you would think it would have a happy ending. A few days into the wilderness, the people start grumbling. We're thirsty. We don't have any more water. Moses went to God. God's like, sends them right toward an oasis. They have water. People say, what are we going to eat? Moses goes to God, and God says, don't worry about it. At the beginning of the day, look on the dew, and voila, there was the manna. Manhu. What's this? That's what it means. Manhu, if you look in the art scroll. So there was this manna. Came from the dew. Wouldn't be dirt. From the dew, and there were these little cakes, and it tasted like everybody's favorite food. If you like one food, if you like, I don't know, blintzes, it tasted like blintzes. If you like kosher vanishkis, it tasted like kosher vanishkis. There was a very personal feeling to it. And God told people, or God told Moses to tell everybody, just take what you need, and that's it. Take an omer, which is a unit of measure back then, like a bushel, just for the day. Anybody who took more ended up with just what they needed. Anybody who took less ended up just what they needed. Very, very divine type of action here. Perfect food. This is also the beginning of Shabbat, of the idea, of the concept of that one day of rest, because they also told the people on Friday, or Yom Shishi as it was back then, as it's still known in Judaism, it's Yom Shishi, we always count down the days toward Shabbat. So they said, take a double portion because you're going to need it. And this is why that some very traditional Jews will have 2 loaves of challah on Friday night to replicate the 2 helpings of manna, one for Yom Shishi and one for Shabbat. Anybody that left it over during the day or anybody that got extra, next morning it was like maggots. Okay? People then say, where's our meat? We remember Egypt, the flesh pots, where everything was great and we had all the meat we wanted. God sends them quails. And the people ate meat. They ate the birds. So, isn't this an interesting contrast? Think about it. On the one hand, we have Pharaoh that didn't learn. He had all these plagues, and he still didn't learn, even after the plagues, even after the worst of the possible situations. The firstborn, even his own son, died of the plague. He still went out after the Israelites. The Israelites, they saw the plagues. They saw the splitting of the sea. They were given water. They were fed bread, carbohydrates. They were fed protein, the meat. And yet, they were still grumbling. They were grumbling. Here's the situation. We talk about free will. We talk about God setting people up. We talk about God hardening the heart of Pharaoh after 5 attempts to let Pharaoh relent and release the Israelites. Now, was it a setup for God to take these people out of Egypt, knowing they had this slave mentality, that they weren't up to the challenge of not only managing being in the wilderness, but conquering the land? Somebody might say, why didn't he do it earlier? Why even allow this to happen? Was it so that the Israelites would appreciate the freedom, which this generation clearly did not do? Was it because he had to pick a generation? It turned out that this was a Pharaoh who was very stubborn, so let's use him. And, the people were going to have to die off in the wilderness anyway. Let's just do it. Now, that sounds pretty cruel. That sounds pretty brazen to us, you know. But think about the alternative. The alternative is, do you want to continue living under the most horrid conditions where you're being worked to death? You have a bare minimum to eat, even though these people got nostalgic for, who knows what. They were afraid of their freedom. It was bound to happen. Think about it. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is what these people earned, this is what was going to happen. We all have free will, but you have to look at both sides of the equation. The people were free. They had their freedom. They were being taken care of. Was conquering the land beyond them? Who knows? Something that we'll discuss in one of our studies, I'm sure. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom. Looking forward to seeing you in services, and thanks as always for listening.